Alright, what's up guys? 7290 GXC here. I know the week isn't over, there's still some matches to be played, but I just had some time now, wanted to make a quick video. Instead of going over all the matches from this week, I figured I just wanted to talk about the metas a little bit. There's been some good games this week. I think there's been some interesting team choices, and I just wanted to give some of my thoughts on the metas. Not necessarily what you should bring, but maybe stuff you should be prepping for in Builder, or maybe just considering using. So I want to start out with Ubers. Ubers, there's a bunch of stuff that's good right now. There's a bunch of stuff that you're just never going to want to use. The first thing you're always going to want to look out for in Ubers is Calyrex Shadow. It's pretty much the fastest mon in the tier. It's faster than Zacian Crowned. 438 speed. Make sure you have a Ghost check. There's a couple teams this week that just didn't have a Ghost resist and they automatically lose. If you just have Ditto, it's not enough. You gotta have Tyranitar, you need Yveltal. Blissey can work, but again, they could always run Shock, Plot. Try to bring a Dark. Just make sure you have some checks to this thing, because it is really good right now. Other problematic mons. Coming into this gen, I didn't think Kyogre was going to be that good, because I think everyone just forgot how good it was last gen when Primal Groudon was around, but without Primal Groudon around, this mon is insane. You can run a Calm Mind. I think Specs is the best, although Scarf works too. There's a lot of different sets it can run. And then, kind of going along with Kyogre, what people are generally using to check it, you can use Ferrothorn. Pretty decent check, but I think probably the most solid mon, and a mon that you're going to want on most teams, is Eternatus. The way you're going to want to spec this thing, you're going to want it to be pretty much I think Special Defense is the best right now. Black Sludge, you don't really need Shed Shell for Dugtrio anymore. You're going to want to invest most Special Defense, but a lot of people run some speed too. You can EV it to whatever you want. I'm going to say the minimum you're always going to want on this thing is 329. 329 outspeeds some mons like Yveltal at 324. Then just some base 100s. Yeah, I think 329 is generally a good benchmark to outspeed base 100s. But yeah, I would always run at least that much. A lot of people will tend to run more though. Ho-Oh, good mon. Boots makes it pretty viable. Necrozma, Duskmane, incredibly important. Most people on their team are going to use it as their Zacian Crowned check for better or worse, because it's not really a great Zacian Crown check. You're always going to want to run this thing defensively. Almost always, just because it's that good on utility. A lot of people will run Thunder Wave and then EV it to be 1 point faster than double Zacian Crowned, and then the rest in max HP, max defense plus. I think a big problem with using the Necrozma Duskmane as the only Zacian Crowned check right now is a lot of people are going to be running Kyogre plus Zacian Crowned. When you do that, Morning Sun just doesn't recover enough from close combat. I think some interesting text you could use around that, you could put Utility Umbrella onto Necrozma Duskmane if you don't think your opponent's going to bring spikes. In the old metagame, Scarm was incredibly common, so everyone was running Boots on Necrozma Duskmane, but if you don't think your opponent is going to use that type of style, using Utility Umbrella defensive Necrozma Duskmane I think is a viable option, and the meta is not that developed, so it's just kind of good to test things, especially just kind of assume what your opponent's going to bring, what kind of style they use. Zacian Crowned, again, incredibly broken on. It has a couple checks. You have Scarf Dugtrio, but then you need one round of Rocky Helmet chip. You have Boots Quagsire, which is, it's being used in Ubers just for that purpose, and it's not even great at it. Zacian Crowned is incredibly good. Those are most of the great mons. I mean, Xerneas is always going to be scary. I talked about Yveltal as a check, but it's also a really good mon. Zygarde, scary sweeper. But yeah, that's a lot of Ubers. Just a lot of stuff that you're going to want to be able to check. An example of a team that I thought was pretty good this week is Trade. Pretty standard. You got Yveltal as your Calyrex check. If you wanted to check Calyrex, you either need a more specially defensive set, or you probably want just Sucker Punch as security against that thing. Calyrex is insane. You can use it to outspeed Zacian Crowned. You can just use it as a breaker. He's got his Necrozma Duskmane for Zacian Crowned. He's got his Eternatus for Kyogre. And this is standard. I think when these metas are pretty new, you're going to want to use some more standard stuff, and I think this team was just a pretty good example of that. I'm not going to watch the whole replay, though. I don't want to talk too much about OU. I think this is actually one of the more developed metagames. We've had some more time with it. There's been some good rises to Ubers, getting some gross stuff out of the tier like Kyurem and Zygarde. If you're still looking for broken, I think Cinderace is pretty insane still. People are just starting to use Kartana, SD Lando, good mons. There's not, I don't think there's a dominating style in OU right now. You're always going to have to watch out for stuff like hyper offense, but I think typically the best style in OU right now is bulky offense or just balance. Other scary mons or Shifu always have a check to that. Using stuff like Clef just isn't enough. You're going to want Clef Pex, Mandy, stuff like that. Oh yeah, Pheromosa, Broken Mon. People run it boots or you run it protective pads depending on how good your like hazard removal is. Another mon that people are starting to run protective pads on is Urshifu Rapid Strike. It's the best item for it. I think people were originally running boots, but being able to not take that chip from Pex makes a big difference, and I think it's a pretty good mon. If you're looking at like top players on the OU ladder right now, I think like Storm Zone's one of them. And his builds are like all offense. A lot of them are physical spam offense. He's really, yeah, I mean, he's like been top of the OU ladder like this whole gen. I typically tend to run more bulky offense. It's probably not the best play style right now. I think it's a bit easier to operate offense. You're still going to want basic checks. You're always going to want to steal. You know, you're always going to want, or almost always going to want a fairy. There's just some stuff that you're always going to want. But in general, it really depends on your playstyle, but I think offense is probably one of the better styles right now. Moving on to UU. Oh, UU, man, they got so many drops. Tier's a bit of a mess. I think two of the most dominating playstyles right now, Rain and Sun, they both have incredible breakers. They're both super easy to pivot. One of my favorite teams is Rain team. I think they're incredibly hard to check. That would look something like Politoed. You'd always want Kingdra. You run Spec, Surf, Hydro Pump, Hurricane, Draco, Meteor. You don't need Flip Turn like an OU because there's just not that many checks. Some other good options. Mantine, not necessary, but always a good mon. You could use it as a fast hazer. Jirachi, not just for Rain, it's probably the best special defensive wall in the tier. You have Lele when around. Psyspam isn't as broken as it used to be because they banned Lucha, but whether it be Calm Mind, whether it be Special Defense, Wish, Iron Head, U-Turn, generally, you don't even need to run Special Defense for something like Lele. You could just run 252, 252, and then like a Wish, Protect, Iron Head, U-Turn set. Generally, you don't want rocks on this thing. I think it just limits it too much, but great mon. Other mons, Amoonguss, not just for Rain again, incredible mon. You'd run something like Spore, Foul Play, Giga Drain, Sludge Bomb. You could run other options, Stun Spore, but especially if you're running Rain, this mon's just incredible. It's also really good because right now I think Trick Room's actually a pretty viable playstyle in this tier. If you run this thing, I might run minus speed, so you're not as threatened by something like Marowak, which you can just Spore. So yeah, you'd want to run min speed and then minus, because speed really isn't important on this thing anyway. It's not going to be outspeeding much regardless, so I do prefer to run this thing min speed. Any other broken mons in Rain? Oh yeah, like on my Rain team I used Azumarill, Choice Band, Aqua Jet, just incredibly good at cleaning. It's also good to check something like Hydreigon, which is another scary mon in the tier. I think Sun has a pretty similar issue. You got Torkoal, you have Vistini, you have Volcarona, you have Charizard, you have Venusaur, so I think this tier is just kind of conducive to weather. Obviously not, you don't have to use it. Some of the better teams, or a lot of the better teams this gen have not been weather, but it's just something that when you're building you're going to want to look out for. Some good ways that I think you can counter weather. Because something like Tangrowth just isn't enough on its own, even if it's a Salt Vest. It just takes too much from Rain Boosted Specs, Hydro Pump, or Surf. Strong Priority is always going to be really good against Rain, whether it be Sword Dance, Egg Slash, whether it be Bisharp, Calm Mind, Jirachi, something I've had problems with in the past. I think Eternal Snowman could tell you about that. Skies are always great mon. Like I said, Volcarona is in that tier. In this tier, that's insane. I think this tier is pretty conducive to offense just because of stuff like Volcarona, Quiver Dance, Psychic, Fiery Dance, or Fire Blast, and Bug Buzz just hits this whole tier. It's a crazy mon. And you can run it with screens. You could run it with Taunt Lead Mew, insane mon. Gyarados, good mon. Man. Another playstyle in UU is Trick Room, interestingly enough. It's just probably one of the most perfect tiers for it right now. It's one of the harder playstyles to use, and I wouldn't recommend it to people who don't like it, but I mean, you have Slowking, Teleport, now you can run out Future Sight, Teleport, Trick Room, Scald. You have Porygon, another Pokemon that got Teleport, so you have two great setters. You can use Stack Taka. You have two of the best breakers ever in Marowak Alola. You got Clash Strier now, insane mon, Sword Dance, High Horsepower, Icicle Crash, Close Combat. It's pretty much the whole tier. Sometimes you'll want something to hit stuff outside of Trick Room, whether that be like Bisharp as a Sucker Punch mon. You could use like Sword Dance, Rhyperior. I had a fun team with Sword Dance, Pasho, Berry, Rhyperior. Crawdon, always a strong breaker. I'm not saying it's the most important thing to prep for in UU right now, but it is a pretty fun play style. Other than that, if you want to like check out replays of anybody, like the Flawless Win has some pretty interesting teams. Pokemon is fun, always a fun UU player to watch. But yeah, UU pretty interesting meta right now. There's just a lot of broken stuff, and I think people are trying to figure it out. An example of a UU replay I had is I think this is Balor's team. Like, I think it's just a bunch of solid stuff. Hydreigon, you got a Moongus, you got Aegislash for Lele, which maybe may not be enough on its own, just because Lele is insane. But yeah, I don't know, just some solid offense. You got Priority. I'm not sure if this was Scarf or this was Scarf. If not, it could be a little bit slow for a team, but I don't know. Just like in these metas which aren't developed, it's always good to use stuff that you know is going to be solid. Next, I'll talk about NU a little bit. I don't want to talk about RU. I didn't have to prep it this week, so I'm not entirely sure what's good. You can always watch replays of players like, I'm pretty sure, yes, Sensei Axie plays it a bunch. Mac 3. If you go into these guys' replays, you'll be able to see some good teams, but this meta looks like UU. So I've seen a lot of offense because the power level is insane. Even you got Diggersby, you got Kyurem, man, this tier is, and you got Veil. Yeah, Ari's a mess. I might just like play offense because some of these mons are insane. Slowkings, yeah. Oh, this tier's, wow. This tier's going to be hard to figure out for anybody, but if you want to check out some replays, I would probably check out Mac 3 or Sensei. Next we got NU. Again, like I don't want to talk like overly too much about these tiers. Haven't played that much of them. Just some stuff to look out for in building. Something that a lot of players are complaining about, kind of the thing that people wanted banned, was Aurora Veil. Whether you want to use it or just prep against it, make sure you have something for it. A lot of times you're going to see it run two ways. You're going to... Whoa, what happened? Oh, Spotify, interesting. Anyways, you'll see it run two ways. You'll either run it you've seen it run with like just Auroras, and then that would be a Focus Sash lead with Aurora Veil and Rocks. You don't always need to run it with Sandslash, but my favorite way to run it is with Sandslash. Alola, the way you would run it is Light Clay, Slash Crash, Aurora Veil. And you could run it two ways. You could run it more defensively with a Spikes like support type set to help out the rest of your sweepers, or you could run it Sword Dance, Triple Axle, Earthquake. This is my favorite set. It's a good mon as a sweeper, and this set always gives you something to click. You're always going to want to run 252, 252, Jolly. Jolly just helps it outspeed some important stuff. Another thing you could do besides like Aurora Stealth Rock, if you're using Sandslash as your setter, you could just run like a Freeze Dry, Earth Power, I guess Blizzard, or some other set. Another thing you could do is you could run it Icy Rock. Then you're not going to want to run it as a lead because people always expect it as a lead, so they're going to lead with their fighting types. But you do that, and then Sandslash becomes an incredibly scary sweeper on its own with Aurora Veil. Some other things to look out for in NU. Oh, by the way, if you're using Aurora Veil, the most prominent sweeper right now is Turtonator. Other stuff that's good: Absol, Sword Dance, Rhydon, Cofagrigus. You can run it Plot or Iron Defense Body Press. You got this tiers. Got a bunch of good sweepers. I've seen Plot, Plot Sub, Mesprit, Salazzle, Silvally Ghost, incredibly good late game sweeper. Good defensive walls. You got Wheezing. I think this checks a lot of mons. Toxic Spikes are pretty good on their own. A good core I see a lot is Vaporeon with Mudsdale. If we check out this replay here, we can see a pretty good core, I think, with Vaporeon, Mudsdale. Then you got Ferroseed and Xatu, pretty good defensive core. Two really good mons in Inteleon and Sneasel. Two of the best physical mons in the tier right now, something you're always going to want to look out for: Tauros and Sneasel. Tauros is incredibly hard to check. You can use defensive Mudsdale. Wheezing does decently, but it's not great. Regirock is one of the best defensive walls in the tier 2, both of these mons, but they're both incredibly scary and stuff you have to look out for. If you want stuff on the special side, you got Inteleon. You don't need to run it Specs. You could run it Boots. You could run it Mystic Water, even with like Ice Beam, U-Turn, Surf, Hydro Pump. Boots and Specs are generally going to be your best options for that, I think. Executor Alola, incredibly scary special attack wall. Interesting thing I found, people always ran this thing Modest last gen. Timid is pretty good. People are creeping Porygon 2. They're running 190 speed. Executor Alola with Timid actually, it's really good for that. It's really good for speed ties against other Executor Alola. It's good for a couple other things. Special Defense Malamar, Scary Mon, Rest Talk, they're all the same. It's a hard mon to beat. You need something specific. Silvally Fairy, you need Comfy to beat it. But if you're running Timid, Executor Alola, you can chip it really hard before Revenge killing it, which is why I think another reason why I think Timid's a great option. If you're looking for the special defensive walls in this tier, Porygon 2 is incredibly good with Evolite, Recover, Foul Play, Ice Beam, Toxic, Teleport, stuff like that. Gigalith, good mon to counter Hail. Girder, incredibly good defensive utility in this tier. I would always consider running this with Defog or just Bulk Up, Drain, Knock, Mach. And yeah, it's pretty good for that tier, I think. Again, I haven't played all that much of this tier, but I think just from a week or two, I think I have a pretty decent idea of what's decent or not. Other good teams I've seen this week: Luthier. Try to pull that up. I kind of forget what his team was, but I remember it was pretty, just a solid defensive core. Let's see. Yeah. Regirock, one of the best defensive walls. Porygon, one of the best special defensive walls. Comfy, amazing mon for Malamar and other stuff. This was actually a trick set, which is really good. The Combine set and the trick set are both good. Gastrodon, Xatu, this is an incredibly solid team, and just like I said, these metas are new. You want to use stuff that's good, and this team is just using stuff that's good, and it's one of the reasons that he won that game. And he was running 190 speed Porygon for Executor Alola, which is interestingly enough, or I'm guessing he was 190 interestingly enough, which is just another reason to try to use Timid on this thing, because it's still strong. It's still very strong. We'll talk about PU briefly next. Favorite team by far this week is Skipcon's. Skipcon had a really solid team, in my opinion. It was just incredibly momentum based, sort of offense, sort of balance. Parting Shot, U-turn, Teleport, Parting Shot, U-turn. He's always going to have momentum with his team, and he has two of the best mons. He has Specs Drampa, and he has probably Choice Band Chinchino. I kind of forget. Chinchino is always mostly going to want Band, U-turn, Knock, Bullet Seed, Rock Blast, Tail Slap, your choice of 5 moves. Yeah. He was running a more defensive Togedemaru. Originally, I was a bit hesitant to run Clefairy, but because I wanted to run Soft Bullet Teleport, but then you realize that's incompatible. But something you realize about PU, weather is not common. I think the only one you could run is Sand, maybe Hail. So you can run Moonlight, Teleport like he did, and I think it's pretty viable with like Stealth Rock and Moonblast. And Clefairy is one of the very few checks to Drampa, which is a problematic mon which may rise pretty soon. If you're looking for Drampa checks, people have been using, what's the thing? It's a Carbink. People run Rest, Talk, Body Press, Moonblast, or Protect, Toxic, Body Press, Moonblast. If you're looking for spreads, you might want to check out Smogon. There's stuff on forums about it. Pretty decent check to it, although it can get like blown up by Energy Ball. You could always use Alcremie. Not the best mon. You'd probably just prefer Clefairy at this point, which is a very, very solid mon. Yeah, just like I really like this team. You have good leads, and you turn this. You have Parting Shot this. He never revealed the Silvally, although like the only good form in PU is Silvally Poison. It makes a lot of sense on this team to hit stuff hard like Alcremie, Clefairy, Defog, Absorb T-Spike. So there's like a very, very high chance that this was Silvally Poison. Other stuff to look out for in NU. Yeah, I talked about Chinchilla being incredibly scary. Sweepers that are scary are Caracosta. People are running like Poliwrath just because it's very good on balances, Choice Band or Choice Scarf, and it can eat stuff like Caracosta. Special defensive walls, Cragnal. Important mon in the tier. You can run special defense. You can run Defog, Haze, Freeze Dry, Toxic. You need Recover. Sorry, Recover, Defog, Haze, Freeze Dry, Recover, Recover, Toxic, Freeze Dry, Defog. Drampa, best mon in the tier probably. Garbodor, incredibly good for setting spikes, toxic spikes, Rocky Helmet, Aftermath Chip, good mon. Golbat, good defogger. Jinx, scary sweeper. Kling Klang, pretty scary sweeper. In the PU leagues right now, I've seen a lot of Rapidash running around because fast, Sword Dance, Flare Blitz, stuff like that. Tangela, incredibly good defensive wall. There's a lot of setup, so it's like generally pretty decent to have a Haze user. You don't need it on every team, obviously. Frostmoth is a scary sweeper. Just making sure you have a lot of checks to these threats. This tier has a lot. Like just from what I noticed this week, I do like the defensive like mons in this tier way better than the special defense choices. Like on the defensive side, Avalugg not great but good. Tangela is incredible. Garbodor is pretty good. Golbat's pretty good. And there's just a lot of like good defensive mons. But like if you're looking to check something like I don't know, like even Behemoth, like the special defensive mons in this tier just aren't good. If you want to check Drampa, you're limited to a few. Cragonal, like it's a good special defensive wall, but it also loses to a lot. It loses to Psyshock. It's just like Ice just isn't the best typing, obviously. But yeah, like the special threats in this tier are scary, and if you can get them in, they can like put in some real work. The last one I'll talk about, LC. Really don't want to talk about this tier too much either. Just something that I noticed from the first week of TLT is offense has been incredibly good. Offense has been winning almost every game it's been in. Zigzagoon, Zigzagoon's been amazing. Zigzagoon's probably won like every TLT game I've seen it in. Grookey is in like 90% of games. Grookey, Swoobat, incredible combo. Like having dark types aren't enough. Like having Poniard or Volby, if it's just like physical Volby without like Thunder Wave or Toxic or something, just like isn't enough to beat it. So that combo is pretty crazy. Like if some LC replays, we could see just like a lot of Grookey, like Vulpix, very good mon. We've seen a lot of webs, which are pretty good. A lot of Memento spam. MJ used a Memento spam against Raj. Poor Raj. Yeah, this tier, I'm not saying offense is the only playstyle, because it's not. It's just a really good playstyle right now, because the breakers are just really good. So try to, if you're playing, make sure you have stuff for webs, make sure you have stuff for Memento, Grookey, Swoobat, all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, that's about it for this week. For everyone who has remaining games, good luck, and for everyone who's going to be playing next week, good luck too. Thanks.